Clay Blair with Boulevard Recording Academy. I just wanted to continue on this Beatles bass series I'm doing and focus on the mid-1964 Beatles sound. This is probably the most consistent bass sound the Beatles use from basically Beatles for Sale up until Revolver. In the earlier days, he was using the 4033A ribbon dynamic combination on the amp. The most important thing about that microphone to know is that it had a roll-off at about 100 Hertz, so it wasn't the bassiest sounding microphone. In the mid-60s, the Beatles were listening to more American records and wanted to get a bigger sound in the studio. That didn't really come to play until Paperback Writer, which is when they actually used a speaker off of a bass cabinet to get a larger bass sound. In mid-1964, Paul received the AC-100 from Vox and continued to use it with a T60 cab. We'll see Paul using the AC-100 head up until Revolver. Up until that time, he had various other bass amps, including monoblocks from Phono Systems. On the floor of Studio 2, the setup was drums in the back with baffles behind, and the bass amp off to the right, baffled off. The guitar amps were in front of the drums and the bass amp. They also had vocal mics in front of the whole band, but the vocal mics were always in figure 8, facing perpendicular to the amp setup. This is actually a 1967 Hofner bass. Paul was using a 62. Same body, but the pickups are a little bit different, but when you do the all neck kind of vibe, which is what Paul pretty much always used, one down, two up, they call it, it's pretty similar. I've got this going through a pair of red channels, Chandler limited red channels that came out of the Abbey Road desk. One thing important to remember is that the rhythm tracks, which were 1 and 2 on the J37 tape machine, they had an RS-124 strapped across those channels. So they would sum the kick and the overhead mic and the bass, sometimes to one channel eventually, but there was always RS-124s on the drums and bass early on. It's not known really if they ever saw much use. Even though they were on there, they might have been pretty wide open, and I can't hear a lot of aggressive compression on those earlier Beatles records, and you can definitely hear it with drums if the RS-124 is going crazy. Right now I'm gonna let you guys hear just the D20 on the bass cab. We got an AC-100, which is the head Paul was using, loaned by my friend Ed Maxwell. I don't have a Vox T60 cab, but we're using a pair of 15-inch JBLs, which are in a Fender cab, which are not terribly different. So what you're listening to again is just the D20. So what was always happening at this point was that there were vocal mics. The bass was baffled off from the drum kit. The guitar amps were put in front of the drum kit, usually not baffled at this point. But the bass was definitely baffled, but near the drums. Because remember, we weren't using headphones, so they had the fold-back speakers that they had up on the ceiling at Abbey Road, and then they had these rollable white elephant speakers. So the bass was closer to the drummer, just so he could feel it. Also, I think they liked the isolation there in the corner. What also was going on was this vocal mic. There was always a U48 going with John and Paul on it. Usually in figure 8, I mean, if both of them are singing, they're going to be singing on the same mic. If it's one of them singing, they might use cardioid. I really am not sure, but I think it was pretty much in figure 8 a lot of the time because there are usually two guys on a mic. Remember, you got this bleed, so this is... That's the U48 in figure 8. It's perpendicular to the bass amp, so it's facing to either side, not directly at the bass amp, to get that separation from the drums and the guitar amps and the bass. And then together, you got both of them. When I try to recreate these recordings, if I'm not singing live with it, I usually throw up the U48 and throw it into figure 8 so you can get that same sound of the room. They didn't intentionally want the room. I'm sure they wouldn't have had it if they had the option, but this is just how they recorded at that point. Everything was pretty much live. When they did overdubs in this era, it was pretty much kind of a one-take thing. They would do a vocal overdub with percussion, vice versa. A lot of tracks would get bounced down. you guys enjoyed that video. There's going to be more coming. I'm going to be doing drums and guitars as well in these Beatleeras. And I hope you guys will sign up for the classes at the bottom, Boulevard Recording Academy. Please like and subscribe.